Hi everyone, welcome to Rike Sports and our F1 show with Ollie from F1 Global. Hi Ollie, how are you?
Good, mate. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Looking forward to another race this weekend with a couple of weeks break now. So Monaco Grand Prix, one of the classic races in the F1 calendar. They're gonna have a crowd there too. I wish I was out there. I'm sure you do too.
Don't we all? Oh God, I wish I had a couple of 100 million to spend on a super yacht. I have to admit, but yeah, it's good to have some crowd.
Looking forward to it. So, as usual, before we go and do a preview for the Monaco Grand Prix, we're going to take a look back at the previous race and go through all the latest news since we last done our show. So, the last race was in Spain, and it was yet again Hamilton and Mercedes masterclass. Great performance for them. They managed to get pole. It was really tight between him and Max, and also Bottas as well. He was only a 10th behind, wasn't he? So it was a tight battle for pole. Hamilton just edged it, and then come the race, it didn't actually help him because on the first lap he dropped back, and Max actually got ahead of him. And at one point, it was looking not so good for them. But as we said, they seemed to have a really fast race car, and it didn't matter that he had dropped down into second place. They managed to make it work with a different strategy, doing a two-stopper and then catching Max with quite a few laps left. Still easy pass on the fresher tyres, and then went on and comfortably won the race. So yeah, it was a great performance from Hamilton and Mercedes there. It was close from Red Bull's point of view. We know how strong Mercedes are at this track, so it's one of their strongholds. They normally do really well. So Red Bull were a lot closer than they had been previously, but again, it was now another win for Hamilton. He's got quite a big lead in the World Championship already. You know, they've won 3 of the 4 races now, so it's looking ominous. Still early stages, but yeah, what was your thought on that race?
So it's one of the better Spanish Grand Prix we've had in the past couple of years. It's something we spoke about before. It's a boring track, and it was pretty boring for the most part. I mean, it was great to see the tactical decisions being made. Again, it was similar to Hungary last year, maybe year before. So that was really cool to see. Qualifying was something I really took notice of. Leclerc in 4th, brilliant from Ferrari as well, finishing 4th, and also Sainz into 6th, finished 7th. Really strong weekend for those guys. But Ocon in 5th and Alonso in 10th. I thought that was a massive improvement from Alpine that I wasn't actually expecting at this track. This is a bit of a mixed track, actually. There's a bit more high speed actually at points. So we saw they struggled in Bahrain with that. It looked like at points the car was going backwards, actually. So really cool to see that. Unfortunately, it didn't quite transfer into the race pace for them. No points for Alonso Ocon finishing 9th. But yeah, I thought it was just a pretty solid weekend, a solid race. We had 3 really good ones in a row. So it was about time we had an okay one. And with it being Spain, it was right. It sort of fit the track. But yeah, overall, I thought it was all right. Just that masterclass from the whole Mercedes team. I have to admit, Hamilton definitely getting the most out of those tyres. But, the decision to bring him in so late, and funnily enough, F1 have released a video today, actually, about the sort of tactical masterclass behind the win. I highly recommend you go and watch it because it's fascinating. Like, just seeing the communication between the tactical guys, Bono, and then Bono calling in Lewis so late, and you saw it on his pit stop, the way he swerved in really last minute, actually. It's fascinating to watch, so definitely go and check that out. But yeah, I mean, we kind of weren't surprised. I can't remember what we predicted, but I feel we probably were right. But yeah, it just would have been nice to have something different, but it felt right for the weekend. I think any other result would have been unfair. So yeah.
Yeah, we both actually predicted Verstappen to get pole and then Hamilton to win in the race. So we got the pole bit slightly wrong, but then as it turned out in the first lap, Verstappen did get ahead. So it was like he had pole anyway, but then Hamilton did come back. Yeah. It does seem like they're saying themselves, Red Bull, they feel like Mercedes do have a faster race car, they're better on their tyres. So they got work to do to catch him. This track coming up is a good opportunity for him. As we know, Monaco, Red Bull have a good record there. It's a different type of track, not a lot of fast corners, more about slow corners, not long straight. So it's going to be interesting to see how that race goes. We'll go into the preview for that a little bit later. Before that now, so we'll take a look at the news between our last show and now. So the big news that came out in terms of the race calendar for this season is that the Turkey Grand Prix had to be cancelled. That's due to it being placed on the red list by the UK government. So it's difficult now for a lot of the teams to get out there So, a lot of them are based in the UK. So they've had to cancel that race. It's a shame. It was a great race last season, really good track there. Unfortunately, we're going to miss out on it this season. And to replace it, we decided to go with a second race in Austria, as we've done last season. So we're going to have 2 races. They call it some second name, the Styrian Grand Prix, wasn't it? They call it
Styrian.
Yeah, Styrian.
Yeah, the Styrian.
Cool. The same thing this year. So there's going to be 2 back-to-back races at the Red Bull circuit there. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a real shame that it's happened. But, I was reading some stats from their press conference about it. F1 has done 17,000 tests so far this year with 15 positive cases. So I 100% respect them taking an extra cautious line with it. Do you know what I mean? It was one of the races of the season last year, mostly because of the dust, more than anything on the circuit. So it is a shame, but the Austrian Grand Prix and the Styrian Grand Prix, whatever you want to call them, is one of my favourite tracks. Maybe my favourite track, actually. I love that high-speed ring. So I'm happy to see 2 races there, I have to admit. Yeah. Bit of a shame maybe they didn't try and add in a race in Germany, Hockenheim, maybe the Nürburgring again instead. They're in that part of the world. It could have maybe had to come to agreement is what I was hoping, but they didn't, obviously. So you never know. And from what I've read as well, it looks like Turkey, it is cancelled, but the guys who own the track, or however it's done, or like license the track, are looking to try and move it to later in the year. So we may still get Turkey. I reckon it will definitely stay on like a standby list. Let's say if France can't go ahead, or maybe somebody later in the year can't go ahead. It's there, it's ready to race, and they really want to show that F1 needs to be there. So we may end up going back. Who knows? But yeah, what are your thoughts on Austria? Are you happy to go back?
Yeah, it's a decent track. Some people are saying maybe they should have just cancelled it, and because there's already 23 races, so maybe just cut it down to 22. Especially because there's a lot of pressure on the teams and all the staff involved with so many races. And these times where there's a lot of pressure on the traveling, where you can go to, where you can't go to, and the quarantines and all of that, it's really difficult for the team. So they're saying maybe they should have used this opportunity to actually cancel the race, but they didn't do that. They decided that they wanted to have this extra race. And the reason they actually said that we've decided to have a second race this part of the season early is they're actually really worried about towards the end of the season, will they be able to go to certain races? So the likes of Brazil, Mexico, the races towards the end of the season, they're not too sure about. So they're trying to get as many races as they can in the early part of the season to make sure that, obviously they're not losing out towards the end of the season with some races that might have to be cancelled. So as you said, if a race late in the season has to be cancelled, then there's an option they could go back to Turkey. So, let's see. It's, like I say, really uncertain times. It's hard. They're doing really well to put on a calendar as they have. They've done amazing last season to get all them races in, and this season, let's hope they get as many as possible and we get some close to 23 races as we can. That would be good. So then the other news to come out was something we both are not the biggest fans of. This whole sprint qualifier, as they're calling it. It's been announced that it's definitely going to go ahead as the first trial event is going to be in British Grand Prix. They announced the timings for it, and I was taking a look at that. So the timings, Friday FP1 will be from 2:30 till 3:30. And the qualifier will be from 6 till 7. And then on the Saturday, there'll be another practice session, which will be FP2 between 12 and 1 p.m. And then the sprint qualifying, as they're calling it, the short sprint race will be from 4:30 till 5 on the Saturday. And then the main race will be Sunday at 3 p.m. So we spoke a lot about this before. It's now confirmed. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I've clicked on Instagram before about my thoughts on sprint qualifying. It's stupid. It doesn't need to be in Formula 1. Fine, Formula 2, Formula 3, put it in there, whatever. For me, this confirmed that F1 as a brand, let's remove like the difference between brand and a sport. As a brand, Formula 1 doesn't like qualifying. It doesn't maybe have as much action as they want, and maybe it doesn't bring in the viewers that they want. I'm clutching at straws here. And that to me was really shown by them moving it to a time when people would be commuting home from work on a Friday. Or, let's say this is normal time, no COVID, wishful thinking. People would be commuting home. Like most people finish, I finish usually at 5:30. So I'll be commuting home, get home about 6:30. Or I'd be going to the pub on a Friday with my workmates. So a lot of people will miss it. So I sort of found that a bit of a strange decision to put it on there, but when else are you going to do it? Additionally, some of the stuff they brought out this week around it saying like, oh, we want to bring in an audience who prefer, a shorter viewing time. We've seen that, young people want shorter things, similar to the Super League, like we discussed. They were talking about doing 60-minute matches because this idea that the younger generation don't want to sit there and watch a long form bit of content, complete rubbish as well. Like, younger generations are the ones watching video game live streamers for 4 or 5, 6 hours on end. They're the one binge watching content on Netflix or on Disney Plus or whatever. So I think that's really a weird way of going around it. And we know the issue, we've spoken about it before. F1 is behind a huge paywall at the moment. Sky Sports is super expensive and they've got that deal for years to come. Tickets are so expensive as well. Like you're talking about about Silverstone. Tickets were so expensive this year. They're £300-400 for one. That's for one person. So that's the issues they need to address first: the ticket prices and the actual paywall of viewing the sport. Looking at it from a sporting perspective, yeah, it could be great. It could be a disaster. We've touched on it before, but I'm not a fan of it. I never want a race to be boring, but I really hope it is boring, just so we don't have to see it again. But who knows? I reckon it could be a hit. But yeah, this isn't something that needs to be messed with. If you've got the fastest car, you qualify P1, or if you make the most of a change in track condition, you qualify P1. Seb Vettel did that 2008 in Monza. Massa did it in Austria in 2014. Like, it does happen. So it just doesn't sit right with me. So yeah, how about you? Have you changed your mind since we last spoke on it?
Oh, not at all. So what's interesting about it is just trying to compare it to what other sports have done as well. So I saw one comparison to cricket, where cricket brought in the 2020 cricket concept, which is a complete different format of a game. So it's not just that it's a shorter version, it's a different style of a game and so many different variables to it. Whereas with a race, I just don't see there being much difference. So it's just going to be a shortened race. And if anything, there's going to be less action. There's not going to be that pit stops that we normally get, where we've seen that played a critical role this season with how the undercut was working and how Hamilton done a two-stopper to make his strategy work. You're not going to see any of that. They're talking about drivers racing flat out, but with a car the ways they are, doesn't make any difference because it's going to be still very hard to overtake. And the quickest cars will be the quickest cars. So you're going to see very little action. It's just going to be 30 minutes of not much happening, I think, basically. And so, they're going to try it. And I think they're going to see that as the conclusion. As you said, it's not they're targeting trying to appeal to a younger audience, maybe, but I don't see that happening. And the trial's not going to go very well. And I think it'll be scrapped. So, as you said as well, the timing of it all as well, it's messing up the weekend with Friday qualifying at 6:00. Why would you do it at that time? It's the time, as you say, a lot of people would still be just finishing work. A lot of people finishing work around 5-6 o'clock, so it doesn't make sense, a lot of the stuff they're doing with it. But if they want to try it, fair play to them for wanting to try it and see how it goes.
Yeah, and also I don't get that as well. Like, they race flat out on a Sunday anyway. What do they think they're doing? Like,
exactly.
They're just trying. It makes no sense. And I think your comparison to T20 is perfect. I love sport of sort of any kind. I'm not the biggest cricket fan. Right? We've discussed before, I wouldn't sit and watch the test match. I've tried it, I just can't get on with it. But T20 I like because fundamentally it's the same, but it is that shortened version. With this, you're not changing anything drastically. It's not like F1 is a 24-hour race, for example. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours max, and you're reducing it to half an hour, 45 minutes. I'm not sure how long it'll take. So it's not that big change from 5 days to a day, maybe, or, a couple of hours, maybe in some case. So that's where it really doesn't make sense, them trying to compare it to cricket. And I mean, you're the cricket expert out of the two of us, so I think you've nailed it with your analogy there. So yeah, madness, just madness from them.
Well, let's see how it goes. Not long for that. It's going to be in July, British Grand Prix. So we'll see how that goes then. Now, the other news coming out, big news this is, could potentially impact how the season goes in terms of the car's performances. There's been this thing with the rear rings and the flexibility of it. I know you know a lot more about the situation, so please tell us.
So, obviously, in Spanish Grand Prix, we have all seen the footage, I feel like now, and Lewis Hamilton pointed it out to us all, thank you. Lewis, you do pay attention apart from racing apparently at 200 miles an hour. The Red Bull rear wing is essentially just flexing like that. I think that's the best way of putting it. Just in the middle, it's got Honda written across it. If you just watch that O, it is just dipping down whenever it's under a lot of load, so a lot of high-speed load. Basically, the regulation at the moment is that they have a load deflection test. So what that means is certain parts of the car can have a bit of flex in them, obviously, because they're under a lot of load, they're under a lot of high speed. You see it in the front wings, sort of when the teeth, I think is the best way to put it, they sort of open and close, when it's under different forms, whether they're accelerating or braking. But basically, this rear wing seemingly goes beyond what is allowed. So the way they test it is in a static environment. So, obviously, it's not under the same load as like 200 miles an hour. And then Red Bull passed that, but when it's under these high-speed lows, it is moving and it is allowing the car to go faster, essentially, to break it down. But what they're doing from the 15th of June, the FIA, is they're bringing in new load deflection tests to attempt to spot any excessive movement of bodywork. Now, this is essentially what this is. It's excessive movement of bodywork. And under Article 3.8 of the technical regs, it states that bodywork must be rigidly secured to the entirely sprung part of the car and remain immobile in relation to the sprung part of the car. So basically, it shouldn't be flexing, let's put it in layman's terms. The Red Bull is so clever, they've done stuff like this before. Every team has, like, you remember, I think it was McLaren with the F duct, like you couldn't have a mechanical part moving, but you can have a hole that a driver can cover with his hand or his knee. So F1's always doing this. It's actually quite fun seeing something like this again. Mercedes had it with DAS last year again. It's not a hydraulic part, it's not an electronic part, it is the driver physically manipulating the car. So it looks like Red Bull from June onwards, so really the high speed tracks where they benefit from it, Silverstone, Austria, Syria, potentially even France, they could lose it, which I don't know how much of a difference it's making. But if it's maybe making enough of a difference to keep them in touching distance with Mercedes, it could be a bit of a disaster. But yeah, we've sort of got to wait and see, really. Red Bull being Red Bull, they're saying it's fine, like sort of being, sort of complaining, whereas every other team is probably complaining about it or already doing the same. I imagine every other F1 team already has a flexible rear wing built and ready to go in case FIA say it's fine. So that's the news out of that camp at the moment. It's technical stuff isn't always the most fun, but in a sport like F1, it is very interesting, I have to say. So yeah, that
very
was
very important. It could be critical. So yeah, let's see what comes of that. And the other big thing that was really nice to see, as you said, like we like to see the technology in Formula One, these little fine details, but also like to see a great livery. So really liked what McLaren have done. You've seen it? I'm sure you have. It's a thing of beauty. It is so beautiful.
I mean, immediate first thought was panic, because you remember Germany with Mercedes doing the anniversary livery where they had an awful race. Like that's where my brain went first. But God, that is a beautiful looking car, isn't it? They've won more times at Monaco than any other team, so it's right that they do it there. That Gulf partnership is classic. If you just look up, Gulf, GULF, and Motorsport, they've got some great Porsche liveries, actually, some great Aston Martin ones in the past, but it is stunning to look at, and the release video was so well made as well. Do you think it's the best looking car this year?
I think so. But really, it caught my eye. It's ironic, but it's just same. But maybe I think 4 or 5 days ago, I was driving. But yeah, 4 days ago, Saturday. Right, I was driving and I saw a McLaren road car, and that was a thing of beauty too. Like, you don't see too many McLarens around,
No,
it's not a common car you see on the road. So to see, I've not seen one for a while, and that was a beautiful car too. So I think definitely. But like, I wasn't a big fan of orange. As I said to you when we we're doing the pre-season, when we we're doing the liveries for all the different teams and rating our thoughts on them, and I wasn't a big fan. I preferred their old style with the silver and red, but with this one, they've just got it just right. There's not too much orange, It's just like it's perfect for me. For me, it's the best one on the grid at the moment. And yeah, let's hope they have a good race at becoming, as you said, with the most successful team at Monaco. But in recent times, Red Bull have been the most successful team, haven't they? So got a really strong record there. I remember Max done well there. He was close with Hamilton last year. It was 2 years ago. Remember last year, obviously, forgetting that it was cancelled. But the last race there was 2 years ago, and that was a really close battle between Lewis and Max. It went right down to the end. But before that, I remember Daniel Ricciardo, well, very dominant there. You know, he was fastest on the practice sessions, took pole, won the race, and he won the race when he had a mechanical issue where he couldn't get his engine to rev really high. Remember, so he had a loss of power. Yet with the way the circuit is, he will still manage to maintain the lead. And that's another thing with Monaco, as we know, qualifying is so important. It's so hard to overtake at this track. There was a stat I saw, but it was a race back in, I think, 2007, but there was not one overtaking the whole race, which is astonishing. Let's hope that doesn't happen in this race. We see a few overtakes. We have DRS, so that helps a little bit. But yes, it's one of them tracks where, you know, some people say it's kind of boring. You know what's going to happen. It's very hard to overtake. Kind of whoever gets pole is going to go on and win the race. Others love it. They say it's edge of the seat stuff because one small mistake from a driver and that's their race ruined. You know, they're racing so close to the barriers because it's so narrow. You know, so bit of a split on this. On some people love the circuit, some people don't. What's your thoughts on it?
I'm halfway down the middle, which is a really boring way to
be.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I get why people find it boring, especially with this generation of cars, because, you know, speaking of Monaco and boats, these cars are exactly that. They are huge. So, you know, I think the last time cars were sort of small, 2010, 2009, 2008, maybe they were sort of really small, is where we saw some really good on-track action. That being said, you know, the last race, you know, the whole Lewis on, was he on mediums or was he on hards for like 53 laps or something like that? It was ridiculous. And Max with the penalty, you know, just launching it up the inside with no hope at the swimming pool chicane, I think. So, yeah, I don't mind Monaco. Like we've said before, it's one of the classic 7, I would class Monaco in, that I would always want to see in a Formula One calendar, while others rotate around it. You know, how can you not go there? You know, it's Monaco. Like, I think that's at the end of it, whenever I think, oh, you know, do I actually like this track? I just go, it's Monaco. How could it not be there? The issue are the cars, ultimately. Formula E had their race there a couple of weeks back on the full circuit for the first time, and it was an amazing race. Like, if you have a chance to go watch, it was unbelievable. And, you know, the big thing there was the cars are smaller. So it did really help. And, you know, normally Formula E, they race on weird circuit, you know, so they cut right around turn one. But no, full circuit, and it was just brilliant, actually. So definitely go and watch the highlights from that. But, you know, next year maybe we'll see a change with these new regulations. Maybe the cars will suit smaller tracks like this and Azerbaijan better. But yeah, I was I'm on the fence about it. Who knows? I don't know. But what I do know is, thinking of predictions for qualifying, we are going to see Max on pole. Oh, I don't want to say it, but I want to say it. We're going to see Perez P2. It's going to be a Red Bull lockout. Oh, it's not going to happen, is it? Then we're going to see Hamilton P3. That's what I'm going for. God, that's really stupid, but I'm going for it. So yeah, what about you?
Well, I agree. I think Red Bull are going to have an advantage. So I was listening to what Toto Wolff was saying and Christian Horner, and they mentioned this, that, you know, in Spain, sector 3 has a lot of slow corners, which is similar to what the Monaco setup is. So the cars that then tend to do well in sector 3 in Spain tend to do well in Monaco, and Red Bull were really strong. Both were saying they thought Red Bull were really strong in sector 3. So from, you know, we hear this a lot though from Mercedes. They downplay it. They say that Red Bull are going into it as favourites, and then, you know, they have the best car. You know, so I think it's going to be a close battle again, but I think Red Bull should have the edge if it is the fact that their car is better suited to that slower track, you know, with slow corners, not so many long straights. So I'm going to go for the same for you. I think it will be a Red Bull. I don't know about a Red Bull lockout though. Perez, can he up his game enough? You know, we know how good Hamilton is. You know, Hamilton can pull out that lap, but even if Mercedes are, you know, a little bit behind Red Bull, you know, he's got the ability to pull out that lap. So I think I'm going to go for Hamilton P2. So Max for pole, Hamilton P2, and Perez P3. Then for the race, I'm going to be boring because I just think the track, you know, like as good as Hamilton is and as good as the race pace that we've seen of Mercedes, just the way that track is, Max is a great driver. We've seen he's good at defending as well. You know, so in that track, as I said, if Ricardo with a car that was damaged, you know, could hold off, I think it was Lewis in that race behind him, right? We could hold him off over that long course. As you said, in the race last there, Hamilton could hold off Verstappen on tyres that were like 50 odd laps. So it's just so difficult to pass it. So if Max does get pole, holds on to the lead in the first corner, he should be able to win the race. So my prediction for the race is going to go for Max to win it. Same order as qualifying, Max to win it. Second place, Hamilton. Third place, Perez. I'd like to see, because this is one of the tracks where driver skill does come into it quite a lot, as we know. You know, it's about that the risk you can take. You know, you're so close to a barrier. You know, we saw Max have a bad crash here, so it's not just like it can happen to any of the drivers. You know, you can have that little wrong moment, and that's it. Your race is over, or your qualifying's over. So, you know, I like that fact. So the drivers are on edge. They always say they're always on edge with that track. That's why, even though it can be boring in terms of a race spectacle, in terms of that for a driver's perspective, and watching it, they're always on edge, you know, and how far you're going to take it to the limits, how close to the wall are you willing to go? So we do tend to see a lot of risks in that, you know, and the likes of Charles Leclerc, great driver, Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel. It's going to be nice to see how they race around there. It'd be nice to see, like I say, close, should be closer, even if they can't overtake. It should be really good qualifying, as was always. It's going to be more of a case of qualifying. It's probably going to be more exciting than the race for this weekend. But see, what's your thoughts on how the race will go?
I completely forgot about Charles Leclerc, actually. Do you know what? Actually, I'm gonna go race. I'm gonna go Max, Lewis, Charles. I'm gonna put Leclerc P3. I don't think in his Formula career, so F3, F2, and F1, he's ever finished a race in Monaco. I think that's a stat. So maybe I've cursed him for another year, but I think that Ferrari's strong. I think he'll probably just want to finish the race in a points position. But yeah, I'll go Charles P3. But I mean, you know, speaking about sort of tactics and the track, if Red Bull do get a 1-2, Perez in second, I mean, is he just going to stop on the first corner and sort of just let Max go for a little bit, just to make sure he really plays that game? But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting race. You know, I was also thinking, you know, it sometimes brings up a bit of a kicker. I've got a weird feeling we're going to see a potential for maybe a Williams point this weekend. I don't know why, but I've got a feeling. I've got a feeling we're going to see Williams maybe get a point or get near to the points, maybe I should say. But yeah, you know, you never know with Monaco. It could kick up a couple of safety cars. It could just be a procession, and qualifying is all the fun. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, we'll see this weekend. One thing that you said about in terms of Perez there, so to mention this to you, that was one of the things that came out of the last race. Do you remember Bottas got the radio call to get out of Hamilton, and he didn't? He made it difficult. What was your thoughts on that? I was surprised, really surprised. If he wants to have a seat with him, he's got to play, because he's not got the pace, so he's got to really play the team game, you'd think, and he didn't do it there. You know, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he should have moved. And I think he should have known it was coming as well. Like, you know, he was way off. You know, he would have seen that Lewis went in the pits. So, yeah, I think he's just annoyed. And I don't blame him, to be honest. You know, is it too much to already say his season he won't win the championship? I maybe have said that after the second race. But, you know, he's not going to win the championship this season. You know, you could repeat that for every season that's gone by for the past couple of years, but you know, he definitely won't win it. So I think maybe he was just a bit frustrated, and I appreciate that. I understand that we're only human, but like you said, if he wants that seat next season, you got to play the game, and the game is that you get out of the way for your teammate, and you prove, you know, he is a number 2 driver, and I think he's got to accept that. You know, there's been some great number 2 drivers throughout history who have maybe accepted it, and they've still done excellent work. And I know F1 drivers can't accept their number 2. I get that, but when you're alongside a 7-time world champion, sometimes you have to. So yeah, I thought it was interesting, but you know, it is what it is. Another thing as well from the last race, again, Mazepin holding people up. Our favourite driver.
Really,
I'm terrified about Monaco though.
Yeah.
Can we just point this out? Bearing in mind how bad he has been at points, not only with that car and spinning, him and Mick, but also with holding people up. What on earth is going to happen at Monaco? So that's something to watch out for, especially if he gets in the way of Max, because we saw what happened with Max and Ocon in Brazil 2-3 years ago now. So, God forbid we see a repeat of that, or if he gets in the way of Lewis, trying to chase down someone, it could get really spicy, especially over the radio. So that's something to watch this weekend.
Yeah, Toto Wolff came with radio in the last race, and he was, he's like, what's this guy doing? Like, it's ridiculous. I just started them, what are you doing? Like, just move it out of the way. It doesn't affect your race. Like, you're not getting anywhere anyway.
Right.
Just spin a lap or two later, you're likely to spin again. Like, so just
he was 2 laps down. He was 2 laps down at that point as well. 2 laps.
It's ridiculous. They need to give him heavy fines. I think he's not listening. But the only way to probably make him listen is to give him some fines, or maybe give him a warning so he's got to sit out the next race or something. They have the penalty points, don't they, on your racing licenses? We've got to get strict.
So he's got 1. So this is also a thing. He's got, I think, 1 point now, maybe 2. 1 point. When he finished F2, you can get a maximum of 12 points and then you get a race ban. He had 11 points when he finished F2, but they don't carry over.
Oh, you got lucky.
Formula 1, which you get definitely got really lucky, but it's ridiculous. How can your penalty points not carry over? It's a license, it's a driving license for all intent and purposes. If you speed 6 years ago, you can get points. That you've got points. Like really, Anyway, we could go on, but we can have a Mazepin podcast. I feel like one day. It might be an end of season one. Just me and you will sit down. We'll just watch all the spins for half an hour. But
a lot of entertainment.
I mean, I'm a bit concerned actually about this weekend and the Haas guys, because they are slow. They are really slow, and it's difficult to get out of the way in Monaco.
It's got to come down to, I think, to the team principals as well. They need to be strict with them and tell them that, look, you just need to get right out of the way, because we're joking about it, but it's serious business. At the end of the day, you can potentially affect the championship, the race itself, first of all, in terms of who can win the race or finish from the podium or whatever, and then that can also have an impact on the championship. And there's a lot of prestige and money on the line there, so it's not a joking matter. And really, we joke about him spinning. That's one thing. I find that ridiculous. He's spinning so much. As I said to you, at that level, you shouldn't be spinning so much. You should have much better control, of a Formula One car. This is elite level, professional sports. So I'm really surprised he's having them issues. But then to just not get out of the way, something so simple. You just got to make the effort. You see the blue. They even give you the blue flags, as a reminder that someone's behind you. But you should be able to see in your mirrors when you're driving that's a fast car coming behind me. There's no way I'm racing against that car. He must be lapping me. Let me get the hell out of his way. It's simple. Sometimes you can say in the midfield, sometimes they might not be sure. Sometimes they're not sure about are you racing against someone for position, or are they lapping you? But in their case, they're right at the back of the field, and they're getting lapped. It's nobody coming to race up against them. They're getting lapped. So I just can't find an excuse for it. So let's hope, they're strict with him. He's team boss, and hopefully he learns. And we get a nice, no getting held up with back markers, just a straight fight between Red Bull and Mercedes, and let's see who wins. Looking forward to it. Thank you once again for your time.
Thank you for having me, mate.
Please remember to subscribe, like, and share.